Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Future of Impact, the first live stream. My name is Rita. I'm one of the producers of this show, and I'm joined today here with Jess Merrell of 1 Degree Impact. Welcome to our world premiere of our podcast. We're really excited to see who joins in. Don't be shy, pop in the chat, say hi, say hello. And if you have any questions, our lovely community manager, Rowan, will be able to relay them to us, and we will try to answer them as best as we can. So Pablo is here. Hello, Pablo. World premiere. Woohoo! We got Pablo in the chat. Everyone else, we got Gareth Beverly. Hey, Gareth, how are you? My Star Wars friend. Gareth is a huge Star Wars buddy.
I know. I will have him on a guest solely so everyone can see his background because it's the coolest background anyone's ever seen.
Absolutely. We have Jessica Stevenson. Hello. Thank you.
She's my set designer, her and my wife, Melissa.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as you guys pop in the chat, be sure to say hello, but I'm really excited to get us into the story of why this podcast is so important, to share Jess's background, our passion, and most important of all, to bring us together as a community. So I'm definitely really looking forward to getting on that note. So, first of all, are you guys ready to hear a story? Let's start with a story. Let's do it. Once upon a time, Jess Merrell worked in advertising and in a really good position in New York for a good portion of her adult life. And she was super good at it. So good that she was really finding great success in the industry. But despite her success, Jess always felt like something was missing. She loved helping clients achieve their goals, but she couldn't help but feel like there was more she could be doing with her life and for the world. Unfortunately, tragedy struck when Jessica's father passed away unexpectedly, and she was left to pick up the pieces. In the midst of her grief, Jess had a life-changing realization. She wanted to help people in a way that went beyond just selling them products, ideas, or a service. She wanted to make a difference in the world. So Jess partnered with a couple other people and decided to start a company that would help nonprofits scale their impact through grants. But getting nonprofits to see the importance of measuring their impact was her biggest challenge. Oftentimes, a lot of these organizations are so focused on the symptoms of an issue that they lose sight of what they're trying to achieve in the long run. And it's not their fault at all. We're really trying to bring awareness and conversation about this today. And when Jess was just about to give up with this whole initiative, she realized that many nonprofits don't actually know how to measure the impact that they're creating in the world. They know how to address the symptoms of the issue, but focus on tracking to solve the root cause of our world's problems. She realized she could make a real difference by helping nonprofits change the way they operate, and so she did. Today, Jess's company, 1 Degree Impact, is helping nonprofits all over the world to scale their impact and make a real difference. And today, Jess is now more than ever dedicated to this, to bring education, awareness, community, and conversation to this cause through this very show, Future of Impact. Welcome to your own show, Jess. Are you ready to share the next chapter of your story?
I am. Let's go. This is so exciting. So many amazing friends and family and clients and people that I worked with in the advertising industry. New friends. It's awesome. Thank you guys all so much. And thank you, Rita, and the whole team here who helped bring this to life. Rowan, woo!
So I am really excited to build out the next chapter of your story through this show, but I'm sure people are curious to know how you became involved in the work you do now. Did your upbringing impact or shape the way you view the world and the work you do today?
For sure. I was raised by an amazing mother and father. My mom's on here, Mama Merrill, Jill. I think that it was always just kind of built into who I am because my mom has always been, what today the buzzword would be social entrepreneur, but it was kind of just like a given. I mean, the way that she ran her business was to make sure that it was always about doing the best for the members. And we had a fitness and wellness business for 30 years in the town that I grew up in. And everything was always about what was best for the health and wellness of our community and how do we bring people together that way. And so, from the earliest I can remember, my mom was, starting the community walk and run in our community and sitting on the boards of, the Parks and Recreations Department and making sure that that we were always involved in that, we had a voice in the community to make sure that we were using our business as a way to help, drive impact through health and wellness to those who lived around us.
Yeah, it's so cool to see how that impact in your life kind of shaped you to what you do now, and how you view everything in the industry. And speaking to your background in business, what do you feel that nonprofits and traditional business models actually have in common, and why is that so significant?
I think that nonprofits and businesses have a lot more in common than they realize and that the industry realizes. And so I think at the end of the day, they're, both running businesses. And I would argue, having, done both. I mean, my family has a foundation. I've run multiple businesses and been a part, obviously, in the advertising industry of, large scale businesses, that running a nonprofit is even more challenging because, I like to think that we talk about, you're running two different businesses, right? In a
Right.
traditional business, you're selling a product or service in exchange for what the market, values that product at, and there's that direct exchange. In the nonprofit world, you're delivering a product or a service to community based on the need, but then your revenue and the financing you're getting is coming from a completely different group of people who, while everybody's a lot, ideally is aligned on what the mission is and they're all giving for that reason, maybe what they're looking to get out of it is different than the people who are the recipients of that product or service.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about viewing impact as an industry,
Mhm.
and the service being, it's not a product, it's not a typical business service, but we're serving the world. And I think that's so cool that the work that you do helps people and helps organizations in that way. But it's going to take a lot of conversation to kind of shift that mindset of viewing impact as a service, to take those tools, those metrics that we normally do in a business and apply them to a nonprofit organization. So, on that note, what is a commonly held belief that many hold in the world of nonprofit organizations that you passionately disagree with, and why?
Probably number one is overhead, limited overhead. There's a great TED talk about it. We talked about it on our social media channels recently, just about how the idea that organizations in the nonprofit space are expected to live off of and grow and solve the world's problems off of such a limited overhead is ridiculous, to be completely honest. That, no for-profit business that's scaling and that's tackling, innovative, things and creating new, solutions would ever be expected to to exist off of 60-70% margins.
Right.
Yet in the nonprofit industry, there's kind of this, old way of thinking that if all of the money isn't going directly into delivering the service, right, into like saving the dogs, putting the backpacks on the kids, feeding getting the food into the food pantry, that any other money is a waste. And so therefore, over time, while we were looking to, as we go ahead, to change the whole industry, our business today is currently focused on the grant space specifically. And so a lot of the funding challenges that we see is that our clients and nonprofits broadly are having a really hard time getting, and have for decades, getting access to capacity building funds. And so funders really, they put a lot of restrictions around access to, what those nonprofits can do with the money that they get. And so if you're, only allowed to get money to deliver the service, then how do you put leadership in place that's going to have the skill set and the ability to scale the organization? How are you going to put technology in place to create efficiency in processes? How are you going to market so that you can drive more awareness, so that you can get more people to donate to your cause? These are all things that the industry's been struggling with for a long time, but we're really hopeful with a new wave of philanthropists and givers and a community around this, that hopefully that's something that can start to change.
Yeah, I'm hearing that the normal ways of philanthropy aren't typically wrong, but they can be innovated and made even better with an entrepreneurial mindset. And I
Mhm.
find that's why it's so awesome that you do this work, because it gives a different perspective on that growth. And a lot of these organizations may be doing a lot of things they think are right in the day to day running of fundraising or having events or any of that, but they might actually be doing it better. Can you give us an example of something that they might be doing right that you would suggest can be done better or improved upon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the work that we do with our clients or, or prospective organizations that we're talking to is really to kind of focus on where are your funding sources now? How do we diversify those as much as possible? And also, how do we make sure that you're using your resources and kind of putting the best emphasis depending on where your organization is at the time? And so we have a lot of really small nonprofits that'll come to us and ask about us doing their grants work for them. And at the end of the day, grants are an amazing source of funding for organizations, but they are very labor intensive. They require a very specific set of expertise. I like to think that our team is the best at it in the world, but it is very tedious. It is very labor intensive. And so if you're just starting out, we make business analogies all the time. If you're a startup, a for-profit startup, and you're just getting your business off the ground, where are you going to go? Friends and family, right? Like the people who know you, who believe in you, and they're going to invest in you because they believe that your idea and your ability to bring it to life is what's going to make it, right? Like that's what they're investing in. You don't have a product, you haven't sold anything, you don't have any revenue to prove like you can make money and then you can use it responsibly. Nonprofits are the same thing. In those early stages, it's really challenging to get people to fund you, especially from a grant, the kind of large, more institutional style funders, when you haven't done anything yet to show. So in the beginning, it's really about, kind of getting the community support around you, what would be considered your friends and family, or maybe angel investors, and then kind of evolving your fundraising strategy over time as you're building up that community. And the number one thing that we see, whether it's a large scale, $5 or $10 million plus organization that we're working with, or an organization that's, under $10,000 or $20,000 and just getting started, is relationships are everything, right? You have a mission that people are passionate about in whatever it is that you're doing. And your job is to connect with as many people in your area, right? Or anybody that would be affected by that, whether that's your local community, your region, the world, if you have a cause that touches people globally. And to get really comfortable in communicating what that is, and to identify why people connect to that, what's their passion behind why they connect to what you do, and build those relationships over time, like you do with, many of the people that are on this call are people that I went to high school with, or people that I worked with in New York. And it's like, nobody wants to hear from the friend who only reaches out when they need something. Nobody wants to give to the nonprofit who only reaches out once a year for their annual giving campaign, right? They want to support organizations who support what their mission is, right? Especially if it's a funding organization. So I would say relationships, kind of knowing where you are and prioritizing your fundraising based on what your capacity is to, to focus on. But then no matter what stage you're in, focus on relationships.
Definitely. I think relationship building is a big part of why we wanted to incorporate this show to begin with as well, to build that community and help with that whole networking process too. But in your opinion, what would you say that listeners can expect to hear on this season of our show, Future of Impact? What are you hoping to talk about? Who are you hoping to have on? What would you like people to learn and take away?
Great question. It's funny. For us, we have been obsessing for years. We've had this business for, close to 10 years now, and we evolved it into 1 Degree Impact as we started making more of an emphasis on relationships. And so, to your point, this show is the exact, manifestation of all of that work that the team's been doing for the past 2 years. As far as, the reason for it is, we don't have the solution, and we are certainly not going to be the only ones that come up with the solution to solve the world's problems. We have been working for the past 10 years to make accessing grant funding as efficient as possible for our clients, because it is a clunky process and it's what exists today for organizations to access funds. But in the future, we're looking for new sources of funding. We're looking for new technologies that allow us to measure impact. We're looking for entrepreneurs, innovators, people who are finding solutions to the world's problems, and then making connections between those people and the organizations who are boots on the ground with the, the community, members that understand the problem. And so, we're excited to start rolling out who our guests are going to be. But we have the CEO and founder of a large impact data company. We have the CEO and founder of one of the most successful nonprofits here in Miami. We're talking to impact investors. We're talking to people involved with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We're really looking at how do we create a space where all people who are most passionate about solving the world problems and are doing that can be brought into one, collaborative communication in one community, so that we can start to, instead of everything being done in silos and nobody really knowing what the other person's doing, we can start bringing everyone together so that we can create a larger solution that everybody can contribute to in order to solve these problems.
How could someone in the industry trying to follow what you're saying easily get it wrong?
Well, my wife would say I'm very wordy, so probably that I will say things in a very wordy way. So maybe I'll confuse people. Hopefully over time, and by kind of clipping out and sharing like the best of these calls, we can start to be clear and people asking questions. I think that one of the things that my team's really focused on right now is impact data. And how do we make best use of that in the grant space? Because a lot of funders are not asking for that specific kind of information. They're asking these kind of broader, more macro level questions, or questions that don't necessarily equate directly to what the issues are that the organization's solving for.
Yeah.
And so I would say that seems to be like a really hot topic, right? Like data has been leveraged in the for-profit space for a long time now to build Amazons and Googles and Ubers and Airbnbs.
Right.
It's really untapped in the nonprofit space. And I think it's a huge opportunity because we have seen, right, like as the trailer for the show suggested, in less than half of my lifetime, we went from having no internet to an online bookstore to a drone delivering a package to someone's door in a couple hours from the time you click order. So I think that understanding kind of how do we get innovation in and the ability to fail to grow and learn into the nonprofit space. That's going to be the confusion, is how do we bring not for-profit people into this nonprofit space? How do we have nonprofit people be comfortable with for-profits stepping in to help support, the solving of these problems? I think that'll be a challenge, but I feel like the industry is ready for it. And I think that there's a new industry to be created in all of this.
Yeah, how do we make impact in industry and start to try to evolve the perceptions of nonprofits, operations, and funding for the next generation and for the future? Do you have any ideas, or maybe people that you're hoping that will help to discuss topics on educating us on that?
Yeah, I think that that there's a few things going on right now. There's a lot of exciting things as it relates to the shift of wealth. That it was kind of talked about for a long time that it'd be a generational shift, but I think there's also just money coming from new places and new people. Right? There's a ton of wealth that was created in tech that hasn't even been in across a generation yet. That is being invested into philanthropic giving, and they got their money from technology, so they're not looking to distribute it in a clunky old way. So I think that impact investors is a really exciting topic and kind of group of people that we have been speaking with, and that we would invite to have conversations about how do we make the most with not only philanthropic giving, but also when you're investing your money in for-profits, where is it being invested and how can we leverage that to make the biggest impact? I think that really just like, how do we bridge, I'm really, the 501c3 status is a financial vehicle, right? It's like a tax vehicle that allows money to be given in a certain way for benefits. And so I really sometimes feel like the cross between the two industries gets, the challenges come from when we look as if that makes them a different organization, as if they should have less resources, or if they should be treated differently, or if they aren't able to, as if they're not able to be innovative and fail and solve the problems. And so I really we've talked about having panel, kind of fireside panel chats on here and just bringing people from different industries together to talk. But I think in order to make it an industry, we all have to step out of the industries that we're in and the hats that we wear and the ways of, we've always done it this way mindset, and really think with abundance and step into the unknown of what this new industry could look like, with everybody working together, being collaborative and trusting that if we all, are kind of driving in the same, with our vision and mission in the same direction, that we will solve these problems together.
Brett Ruiz in the chat is saying, I love it. Unique ability for people to create a unique community for the greater collaborative good. And that's exactly what this is about. I'm interviewing Jess right now to hear about more about her so that you can connect to her as a host. But it's really not just about Jess or 1 Degree Impact. It's about the greater good of the world and the progress that we're trying to collectively make for that.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that greater good, not it can't happen alone or in silos, like you've mentioned before. So, in your opinion, can you tell me what a thriving leadership team looks like in this industry, and like even further, what progress or initiatives they're laser focused on to make those things happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it obviously depends on, the what they're laser focused on is obsessing over solving the problem. Why did they exist? And what are, what are the great qualities of a leadership team would be, all the great qualities of a leadership team in the for-profit side:
Yeah.
collaboration, great communication, understanding, and really being open-minded to what, others have to say, listening more than speaking. Being able to access resources. I mean, I think that that's a huge challenge on both sides, like in any organization that you're running, no matter what it is. Relationship building, as we touched on before. I think Brett's a great example. I want to kind of go back to what we were saying before, because when we talk about, creating community for the greater collaborative good, this, we're sitting here right now in large part to Brett. I am a part of a couple large entrepreneur organizations globally. And one of them, Brett, is also a part of, and strategic coach. And we were in a session together, and I was expressing some of the challenges that we were facing as an organization. And Brett sent me a note and said, hey, I'd love for us to hop on a call and talk through and see how I can support you. We talked through it. He had met Pablo, who then we met you, and this is the team that's kind of produced this whole show. And it starts like that, right? It's like, I didn't really know. Brett runs an amazing Ohio-based like construction and design company. So if you want like an amazing team of people who can like design your kitchen, and have it renovated and ready to go in like, I think it's like a month or something crazy. He's really innovating in that space, and really like, how do you lead with culture? And we have nothing in theory. We have nothing in common from the outside, right? Like, he's in a completely different part of the country. He's in a completely different industry. But our like, core as who we are as humans in wanting to connect, to collaborate and figure out a way to support each other led to where we're at right now. And so that idea of like, I don't know why, we were put in each other's paths, who will come into this, and so I was having these conversations, and my team has these conversations on a daily basis in a silo of a coffee conversation, not as much the past 2 years, but in a Zoom call mostly. And we just thought, well, what does this look like if we have these conversations on in a more public place, and allow other people to be a part of it, and to contribute with their questions and their energy and their connections and their relationships. What does that look like? And so we talked about right before we got on this call, like, how do I feel? I think Esar specifically said, are you nervous? Which is like the worst question to ask someone before they're about to start their first live show. I feel excited. I feel hopeful. I feel so curious, because I know and believe in my core that this is opening up a portal of some sort of, great opportunity for anybody who wants to be involved. But when you say like, who do you think it's going to be? I don't know. And I'm so excited about that, but I know like certain categories that we really want to touch on. And so, anybody who feels like they know somebody who would be an amazing person to be a part of this conversation, definitely please let us know.
Absolutely. It's so exciting to have these types of impactful conversations at scale, because, like you said, in the coffee shops and the meetings and the boardrooms, we're having conversations, but we're not being brought together to collaborate on the joint effort of the greater good. And I just wanted to know a little bit about you, Jess. So, what are your goals for the next 3 to 5 years? And what do you think, like, what priorities will help you achieve them?
Well, priority number one is my wife and I are expecting a baby in December. So that's like, and I think about it, I have so many friends and people who have, brought a child into this world. And I wasn't always so certain I was going to do that. But I think I get like emotional talking about it, but I think that it's that this idea of like legacy and kind of like creating something for a bigger purpose, like I can't fathom, I'll let you know in 6 months, I can't fathom that there's any greater purpose than like bringing another human into this world and then wanting to create a better world for them. So I would say that's a new, kind of motivator that I have. From a business perspective, we really are just so focused on these solutions and how are we going to get our amazing clients and all these amazing organizations, again, for profit or nonprofit, that are solving the world's problems. One of my amazing clients, Mac, is on here right now. He is, changing the world through access to STEM education all across the world. And so in the native language of the people who are actually consuming the content. The ability for them to access the resources they need to scale their impact, and then our ability all collectively to track what that impact is and to be able to show that we're measurably moving things forward. That's definitely on the list. We today on a daily basis, my team is obsessing over how do we make this process that currently exists in the grant space more efficient, and have our clients be the most successful as possible. So, on a daily basis, my team is working on getting 2 times, 5 times, 10 times return on investment for our clients for the money that they're investing in us in the grant and to do their grants management. That we get that, 2 times or more return for that investment every year. And so it's a lot of things. It's a lot of small things. It's a lot of big things. But I think that I feel really lucky that I was, raised in a way and, my life evolved in a way, and I've been very deliberate about it, that I can do what I do so that in the times like running a business is hard, y'all. Like
It's
I don't
hard.
know where the y'all came from, but it felt like that was the word to use. Like running a business is really hard. And so the fact that this is what my business is, and then I have this amazing team and amazing clients and an amazing community around us is like the support that gets us through the inevitable lows. And I hope that we can be that for loads of people and organizations as they're, going through that in order to push their, missions forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very true barrier to progress and innovation, is that it's hard and the resources are difficult to find and the community is in different pockets or it's scattered. And in your opinion, like what are some other barriers to this kind of progress that we're speaking and to reaching the goals that are so important to you?
It's a great question. I was actually thinking about this a little bit ago, so I'm glad you brought it back up. I think the world is very overwhelming right now. I think that it is sometimes hard for whatever reason, and we can blame it on, anything you want. You can call it social media, you can call it politics, you can call it, whatever you want to call it. But I think that it's hard. And like on, certain days, it just feels like, well, what are we, I mean, my best friend was here last night, who's on here now. And we were having a conversation of just like, and we've been since high school, like tackling these things and so passionate about causes. And some days you just go like, what is it all for? Like when you just have these things that happen in your life or in the world or to your friends and family and community. I think that just keeping up that energy, and really having hope that we're all doing this, and that that there's enough good people in this world that are going to, push things forward, and that we're going to continue to create good and create impact in the world. I think that you need a community. I know that you need a strong community with great energy around you, because nobody can be holding it at the highest level that all the time. So when you have that dip, to have people around you who can support you, and when you're the leader of an organization who's seeing this on a daily basis, it's even more challenging because you're facing the challenge in your face every day, and then having challenges accessing the solutions and the resources to solve that problem. And so I think that would be probably what it is like the kind of mental energy and the stamina to keep pushing through all the challenges that you face.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to run your organization, you want to change the world. Obviously, you're still human though, so I'm sure there's other leaders out there listening that are like, "Yeah, I feel you on that." And do you have any advice for them on how to balance, life and priorities, and to not work from that empty gas tank. I know we spoke about that before, how that was important to you to try to bring awareness and education to that too, because it can be a lot and is overwhelming, but there are ways to navigate that.
Yeah, I think that when I left New York, which was at this point 8 years ago, it was 2 years after I'd lost my dad. And my mental health was in a really bad place. And so physically, mentally, I was completely drained and I really wasn't able to be living, it to my full potential. And like on paper, I was crushing it work wise, but just like as a human, I just felt completely depleted. And so I've, spent the past 8 years really figuring out like, how do you find that balance? And I think that it starts with, I always go back to like, if I am not in the best place, then nothing else is, right? Like it starts with me, and then I'm sure next it's going to go like my kid, and then my wife, and then my family, and then my business, and then my community and all that. And so, I have spent time, just like I grew up in a fitness and wellness, business my entire life, which was, made this a lot easier for me to kind of understand these concepts. But getting back into taking care of myself physically, getting some exercise, being cognizant of what I'm putting in my body, not being over the top about it. Like, I enjoy, the French fries and the things, whatever, but just like knowing how to manage it if I need to.
Exactly.
Getting into meditation, I play around with and have fun with it. So I've done Wim Hof breathing. I've done transcendental meditation. I've done, different courses and workshops and things. And I've built communities, or, been a part of communities around me in the different stuff that I'm interested in. I met Mac, who's a friend and now one of our clients, because I have a really deep passion for space. I went to space camp when I was in 4th grade. I loved it. And then it's somewhere along the way, life and adulthood like kind of took over, and I just like lost that connection. And so I just decided I want to get involved with it again. And I found this community, this incredible community that's like astronauts and CEOs of space organizations. And they're all on this, in this community that I get to meet with now on a weekly basis, which is amazing. And so it's
So
like
cool.
being really deliberate about like how you're designing your life, I guess, is kind of like the summary of all of that. And in that, it requires for me to make sure that my tank is as full as possible. And then, my mom and I are having this conversation the other day. Sometimes you just feel like shit, and it just is what it is. And then you just sit in it. You just sit in it. And it's like, and you want to, like you want to jump in and you want to like fix, want to keep going, or you want to like have someone come take that away, or you want to like, use a vice to like feel better. But it's like, just sit in your shit. And like after a day or two or whatever, it goes away. And then you kind of start back on your things and, go sit. I sit in the dark and watch Grey's Anatomy. Like that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to communicate that, because outside looking in, I'm sure there's a lot of leaders that look at you and the success and be like, "Oh, she's got it all together and I suck." But I guess we all have to sit in our shit every now and then be okay with that and move forward and reconnect to the people that we know in order to keep ourselves grounded. And speaking of community, we're getting some really cool comments right now. Jessica Stevenson said, Jess, you give me hope. This show gives me hope. Nicole Coppola said, regarding to something we said earlier, it reminds me of that quote: "A society runs best when old men plant trees for whose shade they know they shall never sit in." And that's what we're talking about. We're trying to make these kinds of progress for what now that we may not ever see, but hopefully maybe your daughter will see, or hopefully like generations to come will see. And giving the leaders the space to talk about it, to learn about it, to learn from each other is exactly what we're trying to do here. Brett is agreeing with Nicole in the chat. He said, "Amen, Nicole. Helping the next generations is so important. Sometimes we will never see the difference what we do today for what will happen in the next generation in the future." So, it's we're all doing it together and we are making a difference. And I'm so excited to hear more about why it's so important to you to make that difference. Like what differentiates the work that you do from others in your industry?
Well, let's see. What differentiates? Probably like my curiosity and obsession with just like learning about everything. I think that my background in advertising and seeing things at a very global level, that kind of stemmed from, I studied abroad when I was in college. I think that should be like a mandate for all students to study abroad. I think, Liam and Mac and everybody would probably say like, and beyond, right? Like, and then get up into space to see everything. But just the idea of like, um, my perspective on the world, just because of my experiences that I've been, fortunate enough to have. But I think that this kind of like entrepreneurial for-profit background blended with a deep understanding of the nonprofit space that comes from not only my childhood and, the community and the world my mom created around me, or that I was able to be a part of. And then things that I was always just interested in with school and my sorority and stuff like that. But I think that the kind of blend of, and like, I'm the, what is it, like the jack of all trades, master of none
Yeah.
mindset, because that's most exciting to me, right? Like I love being like, what I say is like I love being the dumbest person in the room. I love being on the space call, because it's like what everybody's doing, what they're talking about, and what's really happening is incredible. I love talking to our clients, and they're talking about like the work that they're doing. And one of our clients, I think it just ended, Outfest. They just ended their 40th anniversary film festival for the LGBTQ community out in Los Angeles. And I just, that idea, and my team allowing me and running the business in a way that allows me to be in the space that I'm in and sit at a place where I can kind of connect. We have had some funny conversations where they kind of have to like, we've created a nice seat for me to sit in that allows me to like do that without driving everybody crazy. Because I, often will be Meg, who's on here, my COO, like, I'll be like, Meg, I met this person and they're doing whatever. We got to partner with them. We got to do this thing. And she's like, okay, we'll put it in the parking lot. We'll talk about it later. So I think it's like a blessing and a curse, but I would say like my just genuine curiosity and excitement over like the possibility of what there is, and which then drives me to connect with so many different people, and kind of bring them into this space, and just, so excited about like what, it's like a big thing of Play-Doh right now. And like, what will that be molded into, with the show as a vehicle?
Yeah. Who's someone that you met recently, either business leader or, nonprofit organization, whoever, that has impacted you, or that story has just like made you even more excited about the work that you're doing?
It's hard. One is hopefully our first live show guest. So we'll confirm that, but she is the CEO and founder of an impact data company. She's been in the industry for, forever, 20 plus years. And she just has a really unique perspective because she's been so connected to the work, originally doing it. And she's in the space of social and emotional learning, and measuring the data of the youth development programs all around the country, and how that actually drives, social and emotional learning for the youth in our country. And she was, a consultant for most of her adult life, going into organizations doing this work, and then realized that it wasn't accessible to most smaller organizations or BIPOC led organizations, and just organizations that didn't have access to spend $20,000 for her to come in and do a study, right? And so her and a team of peers created a software and kind of basically took all the power of their brain and put it into, technology, so that organizations can access it, at a low out of pocket, so that it's scalable. That's very exciting to me, like how technology can be leveraged to, help, push everything forward. And then I have another friend that I met, also similar to Brett, in the entrepreneur community, who is very involved, in the cystic fibrosis space. And we are working on, what does it look like, to really push that forward, to put an end to cystic fibrosis. And he's doing some work with MIT. We have a number of things going on around the MIT space that's really exciting. And so, it's just so many smart people. There's so many smart people doing so many amazing things. And that's there has to be more in the world. Like, people have to hear more of this, because if you turn on the news or you put on social media, it's like the world's ending and everything's going to shit. But like, then you sit, and come on this show, or sit in my seat that I get to sit in, or if you create this, for yourself, and it's like, diseases are being ended, and, we're going to space. Like, we're legitimately going to space. Like, that's nuts. Like, regular people, not just astronauts, like civilian astronauts. There's so many innovations in the food space, and and in medicine, and we have clients that are doing research in, brain health and in addiction research and all this stuff. And it's just like, I don't know. I think that, there's too many to count. Like, I obviously get very excited about very fervent.
No, but that's amazing. We're really, really fervent about this. It's our inside joke on the show. If you ever hear the word fervent, just like throw a emoji that means fervent to you in the chat, because that's when we get super excited. So if you hear the buzzword, give us a fervent emoji in the chat.
We'll make
to
it a
hype us
drinking
up.
game every time
Yeah.
Jess says fervent.
Something that someone said in the chat, Sonia Hendler said, time is non-refundable, use it with intention. I think it relates to what we're talking about, because when we do turn on the news, we see all these crazy things happening, but then there's all these cool, smart, innovative people out there that are using their time with intention to make that impact and push forward the things that we can do to make the world a better place. We've talked about that before. Like, it is actually wild to me that we have all the technology that we have. We have all the resources that we have. We have people like you that understand the monetary resources and the funding to help make that happen. But for some reason, we are still not making progress. Why?
Well, it's a great question, Rita. You know, I will say that it's all about asking the right questions. And so we've been asking a lot of questions for the past, I mean, I've been asking a lot of questions my entire life. But especially as it relates to this industry, since I got involved, about 8 years ago, is like, why is it so complicated? Why is this so complicated? And really kind of like and I'm open to this evolving, and I'm open to other people challenging this or bringing in new ideas. But, this was mentioned in the trailer for the show, but like mission, metrics, and incentives are not in alignment. And so when you see in the for-profit business, the difference is that the for-profit industry is run by markets, right? Like consumers decide where they want with their dollar or with their currency, right? Their crypto, whatever you want to call it. They decide how they want to, and so it moves the market, and the consumers ultimately decide, and supply, then there's supply and all that.
Right.
But through supply and demand, the market, shifts, and then therefore innovation, competition is created, and innovation is bred. And then that's kind of what moves things forward. In the nonprofit industry, mission is the leader and there isn't market. And so mission and metrics and incentives not being in alignment then mean that there's a lot of disconnect between the mission, which is tied to the community that, or the, constituents or whatever the purpose of that organization that exists for, that problem to solve. If they don't have the ability to measure whether they're solving that problem, that's like ding, 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 problem number one. And then if the people who are aligned in making sure that that they're placing their dollars, like the people who are funding this and resourcing this, aren't incentivized to help to push those forward, right? To like drive metrics to deliver on the mission, then you have kind of like a rickety, I don't know, plane. Like it's not going to go anywhere. And so the people who are leading nonprofit organizations are incredible. The fact that they're doing what they're doing and accomplishing what they're accomplishing with all of the challenges and hindrances that they're put on, in front of them on a daily basis is mind blowing. And so I just think, like, imagine what could happen if we could just make everything more efficient, and we could get that, we can measure, make it possible for everybody to measure things in a way that everybody can agree on, and is really pushing things forward, not just what people want to see so that they feel better about where they're putting their money, but what's really tied to the community, right? Like, how do we go community up instead of funder down? And so I think that that's probably, if we can solve that challenge, then we're in a good place.
Yeah, it's not like you're saying of the work that organizations are doing now is not enough or it's not right. You're just someone that's always had this efficiency mindset. You always look at things and question and ask. And it's not because you're judging, it's because you care and you want to collaborate and you're inquisitive in that way. Like, we talked about it before. You've always kind of been this efficiency mindset person. And like, how could that actually, really help these organizations so that when they hear what you're talking about, they're like, oh, okay, like she's just trying to be that like helping, implementing right hand person for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think like we plan to have our clients on the show, those who, want to participate. I know not everybody loves this format. I'm going to try to have my team on the show, Meg and Nicole, who probably will just be dying right now that I'm even bringing this up as a possibility. But I think that, being able to have conversations and really understanding the core of what the challenges are, bringing that to the forefront, and putting that on some sort of stage for other people that want to there's just so many innovative things happening as it relates to funding. and solutions that are coming from the for-profit space, because they have the ability in the for-profit space. We have the ability to test and fail and test and fail and test and fail. The nonprofit sector doesn't have that ability. They have no forgiveness in not getting it right. Right. They have no resource, or there's no R&D bucket for, resource bucket for nonprofits. There's barely even a bucket to pay your people to just do the job they're doing, let alone to like try something new or try a different way to market or try to, all of that. And so I think that, that would be like, I would love to just invite as many organizations to the table that can really talk about like the challenges they're facing, and then bring as many people with solutions to the table to say like, here, and then let's test some things. Like I very much see the opportunity and the possibility of this show producing, test cases for partnerships, collaborations, that either we're a part of or that we just, hopefully get to be witness to, or get to, be kept on the loop, kept in the loop on. That's what I'm most excited about, is like the unknown of what's going to come of this.
Yeah, on that note, if there's anyone watching right now that would like to provide some encouragement or ask a question or come up on the stage, this is a great time to do that. We're our community manager, and Jess can help us to make that happen. But if you are interested, leave a quick fervent comment in the chat expressing your excitement to wanting to chat. I know we've had people kind of passively leaving messages, like Isar was excited that he found another space nerd while we've been talking, and Katrina has been really excited with the love of learning, and like we just have a lot of excited people here, and we would love to encourage you to come up on stage to keep the conversation going. But in the meantime, if you're a little shy, it's okay. We can ask another question to get you excited. So maybe the question that I asked Jess, you might want to answer. So Jess, I'll start with you. With all the experience that you have now, what is some advice or encouragement that you would give to a young person looking to make change in the world?
That is a great question.
And if anyone has ideas,
I'll tell you that I have learned over time that instead of advice, to share experience.
All right.
And I am fortunate enough to have had a mentor when I first moved to New York right out of college, who was an Emmy award-winning producer. He was like, friend of a friend of a friend of the family type thing. And, certainly did not need to sit with me for 4 hours and introduce me to his whole team and whatever, but he sat with me and really just kind of like answered all the questions I had and gave his perspective from his experience on things. And I would say, if you're a young person starting out in the world, I think that it's very easy to get jaded or kind of like listen to what other people say. I get caught in this a lot, where I get like really like, I want to, I'll find myself in a pattern of like looking to others for like what I should. If you don't should yourself is like the general gist of all this, like don't should yourself. So I find myself, like that would probably be a big one, is like really just trust your intuition. And if you feel like it's not as strong, like really work on developing that. That's been one that I had a really strong intuition. I had a really strong gut instinct. After my dad passed away, I lost it a little bit. And I have been spending the past 10 years on, working back to find it, because it really never steers me wrong. I've really never met anybody who said, oh yeah, I trusted my gut and it went wrong. And so I would say that's a big one for me. And then really just the learn, listen and learn. My friend Vanessa is on this call, and her son, we were talking with him a couple weeks ago, and he's 13, and he's really curious about why the problems exist in the world. And, he kind of wanted to take that, what he's hearing, from his peers and kind of what the noise that's out there. And he was kind of saying and I think it's this person or that, or this issue or whatever. And her husband, Vince, and her and I were just chatting with him, and you just started asking questions. And have you learned about this? Do you know about this? And then he was like, no, I didn't. And so we kind of just talked about learn more, ask more questions, don't take what one point of view is as the be all end all, really be open-minded to there's other points of view and there's other ways of doing things. And then the other thing is just do something, just do anything. I think that's, you're always a good reminder of that for me with the, what's the acronym?
Getmo.
Getmo, good enough to move on. Like just, I am the perfection is the enemy of done in almost all cases, that I will obsess over something being perfect and not get it out or not start it. I tried to cancel this lunch and move it, forward a couple weeks many times. And I think that that's it. Like, it's just start doing something, and then you can improve it over time and optimize it and build upon it. And, and maybe it doesn't end up being the thing. Like, if you would have asked me 20 years ago what I'd be doing today, it wouldn't be this. So just like get going, and then like get in the flow, and then like follow the waves, and like let things guide you. But if you have a good heart and you are passionate about things and you really believe and want to make a difference, you'll find the people who will guide you, and you'll find the opportunities to put yourself in a place to do that.
That's so true. Cody Adams in the chat, she said, the biggest regrets happen when you ignore your gut instincts, going back to what we were talking about a second ago with wanting to, make the decisions to do good in the world or in life, especially as a young person. But there can be a lot of noise. So just starting with what you believe and what you have in your soul, and like you said, like trying it, going forward, and reiterating is as we move forward to a better solution. And Katerina, she says, or Katrina, sorry, Katerina, we have the answers inside of us. She says, we have to trust ourselves in the process of discovery. That's a big one. Trust ourselves in the process of discovery. And then we have another person who is recalling something that you told her, Nicole. Jess once told me, remember, good things have to happen to someone, so why not us? I always think about that when I go off on Story Island and my mind starts drifting to the negative. I want that saying on a pillow. Wow. So you're already making impact with so many people. Rowan, she said, live every moment and always be grateful. So, Gareth also
Gareth has a good one.
He's a good one. Sumo, he has one that says, shut up and move on, when you have to disagree, but you have to commit to something at the same time. I like the Sumo one.
I do too.
What I'm hearing from everyone on the chat, and what I'm hearing from you, Jess, is that we're all committed to pushing away the things that we tell ourselves, the negative things that we tell ourselves for our business or for our organizations, and coming together to learn and listen and really just collaborate and understanding the way that we can scale the good that we're trying to do, whether it's through our business, whether it's really trying to do great things like going up to space, like you were mentioning with our friend in the chat here. But I think something important to really touch on is, even with all of these conversations that we have, what is just the biggest takeaway that you want everyone in this community and the listeners to get from this show and your mission?
Ooh, that's a big one. That's the one to take us home. I think the biggest thing from the show is hope, is inspiration, and interest in, hopefully having a place that you can kind of tune in. It'll be live once a month for now, and then as time goes on, we'll move it up to hopefully once a week at some point in the not too distant future. But really just a place to go and a community to be a part of that is really committed to focusing on how we're going to make impact in this world. How do we, leverage all the impact that's already being made to tell those stories? I would love recommendations if certainly, we have we cast a pretty wide net as far as like being interested in being out there and connecting with different communities, but we always want to hear good stories of organizations doing incredible work, or to innovative technologies, or ways to use, my friend Matt's on here, like he's a futurist expert. And so, ways to use like, new technologies that people are just grasping, how to wrap their heads around them. How do we use them for good? I think that, those are, just ideas and passion and community and connection. We, hope to have incredible minds on this show, people from the community that can speak about what's impacted them, people from, technology companies, people from the impact investing community. So if you know anybody, if you are any of those people and you would love to, connect to, kind of share your story and be a part of what we're building, we'd love it because it's, like we've said, in the introduction for the show, like this is not a job for one or even a few. The only way that we're going to solve this and continue to make this world a good place for the next generation and the generation after that is if we all come together and take our, everyone's collective brilliance and put it together. So
That's awesome. Before we wrap up our live today, I want to give everyone listening or watching a chance to ask us questions. So if you have any questions about what we plan on doing with the show or any ideas or suggestions for things that we should talk about, we're going to give you guys a second in the chat to drop them in here. So no comment is too wide or out there. We're nice. We won't bite. Roanne or Gareth or Cody or any of you that have been commenting, we'd love to hear them. So let's do some fervent dancing while we wait for a question. We're waiting for a question. I'm sorry in advance for all of this awkward dancing moving. Okay, well, Nicole, I'd love to hear more about who you are hoping to work with in the future.
Well, you know what, Nicole, I would throw that question back on you. So Nicole runs our prospective client outreach. And so she is, we talk about our June 100 list. So the kind of ideal organizations out there in the world right now that we either are already working with or are on our list to hopefully work with in the future. So I'll throw it back on you, Nicole, but I will say one that I just have been following them for a bit now called the Ocean Cleanup. And they are based out of the Netherlands, I believe, but they're doing some incredible work. They have created a technology that goes into the ocean and can suck up tons of plastic from the ocean in short periods of time. And so when I think about like the perfect, kind of analogy or like real life example of like the way we used to do things versus the way we can do them now, and like, when we were growing up and still today, it's like everyone get your buckets and your sticks and like go on the beach and pick up trash. And then you have this machine that can suck up tons of trash at a time. I just get excited about that because I think when I think about how we're going to clean the oceans, it's that machine. I think it's great that people want to help and they want to pick up trash on the beach with the buckets. But I think if we're going to solve the problem, it's going to be a machine that's sucking up tons of plastic from the ocean. And so that would be one example. But I know that there's many, many more that Nicole and I have on a list to that will hopefully be future show guests and clients or friends or just part of this community.
Absolutely. Anyone that you work with, it's a collaborative experience to make sure that we are thinking about things in that different way. Your background from business to also the nonprofits, I think is so inspirational. And I'm really excited to see and hear more as we move on with the show. So if someone is interested in learning more about making an impact or they'd like to connect with you personally to be on the show or are interested in learning more about 1 Degree Impact, how can they do that?
Oh, they can reach us in so many ways. Our website, onedegreeimpact.com, spelt with an O-N-E, 1 Degree Impact. We have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, we have TikTok. You can email me, jessica@onedegreeimpact.com. You can send a messenger pigeon. Probably not going to give out my address right now, but it'll find me. There's so many ways. Yeah. Oh, Roanne will throw it all in the chat. But yeah, and any topics, guys, if there's things we want to talk about, it's so much more helpful if we can like be, provided stuff that you guys want to hear versus it just being like whatever we come up with. So please send questions, feedback, ideas, things you'd be passionate about hearing about in any of these ways that you can get a hold of us. And I will work my butt off to make sure we get those topics covered and those people on the show.
That's amazing. To wrap it up, I'm going to end this with a comment that Miss Jill Merrell has left for us. I think it'll be a nice way to end this. She says, it does go back to each and every one, having the awareness of the issues and then taking any action to see change. Look at that. We are all the future of impact. Thank you everyone so much for joining us on our live today. This was our introductory episode. I am formally passing the baton to Jess to take on all the
Got
other
it.
hosting of episodes. Rowan is dropping the next live show coming soon, August 9th, 12 p.m. Eastern. Watch out for it. And everyone have an awesome day. Go out there, make someone's day better, and make a change one person and one conversation at a time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Rita. I appreciate you. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a beautiful day.